Welcome to a new video in my home automation series, and as you can see from the screen, it's going to be another Shelly video, and that's going to be a special video because this is about the Shelly Plus models. So we have two models at the moment, and instead of going into the details, I think I'm just going to dedicate this video to talk about the Shelly Plus. What's new, what is new already, and probably what is coming in I'm thinking it's probably going to be a new line of Shelly products. And I've already posted some pictures of this as a YouTube post or a YouTube story. I think no, it's post. I don't know how many of you really consume YouTube over the phone. To be honest, I'm not really that type of guy. I usually just watch YouTube on my laptop where I don't see the post. But anyway, I posted this picture, and I wanted to say, like, what do you want to know about this? So maybe I could use that to gather some information what you are interested in about the Shelly Plus. I didn't get a lot of response. Maybe I'm going to use this video. So I'm going to talk about this. And if you have any questions, just ask in the comment section. And by the time I get to the actual reviews of the Shelly Plus 1 and the Shelly Plus 1 PM, actually the boxes are the other way around, then I can include those questions in the video. The only question I got so far is if this can be Tasmotized as well. And actually, I haven't looked that up yet because maybe I'm going to reveal the first biggest change about the Shelly Plus models is they use the ESP32 instead of the ESP8266. So I'm not really sure if Tasmota works on ESP32. I think it does. So it can be Tasmotized because it is still using the, the Shelly principles about like how you can change the firmware and how it is open, and yeah, you still have the debug ports at the back. So if you want to make changes, you can do that. So that hasn't changed, but let's look at what has actually changed. And let me change the view. So we are going to look like this. And so this is the site which says the Shelly Plus series. And as I said, we have two models at the moment. And again, I believe that the new products that Shelly is going to release, they're going to be in the Plus line. Or probably most of them are going to be in the Plus line. So they picked the most I would say basic, but probably less. I mean, not basic in a bad sense, but they picked the first two products and the ones that are probably sold the most and used in most cases. The Shelly one, which is like a single channel smart switch, which has inputs and a dry contact output, and it still uses the mains voltage. It can also use DC 24 to 240 volts and also DC 12 volts. So those things haven't really changed from the original Shelly one. As you can see, the box is like this new square shape, sort of like not pentagon, but five-sided shape as one of the as like the newer models instead of the old round one. And we also have the Shelly 1 PM, which is, again, single channel, but it has power measurement, so consumption measurement. So these are the things that are the same, or, physical appearance is the different, but otherwise they are the same. And if we look at the, the next generation thing, I mean, actually it doesn't say here that they are using ESP32, but from some of the function I can guess that, well, Bluetooth connectivity, you need ESP. Well, 32 has Bluetooth, 8266 does not. So that's probably one. That was the first giveaway for me that they are using a new chip. And improved integration. So we are going to see about that probably in future videos. I have seen some interesting stuff already. And enhanced safety. So again, ESP32 has more capacity, it has more RAM, so it can store more certificates. So they can really, use, for example, MQTT-S to securely connect to MQTT server. So if you are planning to connect it to an external MQTT server over the internet, now you can use secure connection. You don't have to use, simple connection. You see the, the stats here. Improved interface, and standardized RPC. That's something that I'm going to talk about. Well, actually, let's talk about now. So the improved interface is related to the web interface. I'm going to use the Shelly one as an example. The 1 PM is not hooked up yet. So if I change to, not sorry, this view, you can now see that the user interface is somewhat different. It still looks, more or less the same. I mean, the black background and these sort of like gray tiles, but you can see that the icons have changed. I mean, most of the functionality is going to be the same. So the type of things that you can set, like, timers and schedules. But then, of course, there are some new things. So webhooks, which are the URL actions, they work exactly the same way. I mean, there could be some new functionality. For example, you can set the start and end date for the webhook or the URL, and probably the conditions are also a little bit more than what it was before, but basically you can just add URL that the Shelly can call when something happens. But on the device front, it is the same. Again, some new things here, the scripts. So this is something that I haven't seen. And to be honest, I'm really looking forward to this, because if you have watched my other videos, I tend to speak very highly of ESP Easy just because it has rules, which is a scripting functionality. And now it is also added to Shelly. And there is already a whole documentation on what this scripting functionality is. So it is a modified version of MJS. To be honest, this is going to be new for me, but it's JavaScript, and we use JavaScript in Node-RED, so it should be fairly easy for me to learn and probably just cover this whole scripting thing in a brand new video. I mean, look at this. You can do functions and outputs and of course calculations. So this looks like really, really good on-device logic that you can implement. Again, if you're sort of like the integration guy using Home Assistant to talk to Shelly, probably this is not something that you're going to use a lot, but I'm personally fairly interested about that. Standardized RPC. So the communication protocol is a new protocol. So if you look at the documentation, so there is a Shelly Gen 1 API, and this is the Shelly Gen 2 API. So there is a whole section on what is this RPC protocol, how it is used in the device. And again, there is documentation of how it is used in, for example, the Shelly 1, and of course how it is used the Shelly 1 PM. Probably the only reason you would be interested about this, because this RPC functionality or concept also works in MQTT. So if I look at how the Shelly 1 communicates over our MQTT, you can see that it has statuses and events. And under that, for example, the events RPC, it sends a big JSON where it shows all sorts of status about like what is the uptime, what is the status of the switch, and it also shows, for example, the temperature, because both of the unit has temperature protection. So you can even read the inside temperature of the unit. And even when it sends status, so for example, a system status looks like this. So it shows you like memory consumption and firmware version. And even when it shows the state of the switch, then again it shows that it's switch ID 0 because it has only one output. And what was the source? So again, you can have several users, and again you see temperature here. So a lot of interesting information, and to control this relay is no longer like have a simple topic that you send 1 and 2s, but you actually have to send an RPC request, which makes it a little bit more complicated, but probably it's still going to be easy to learn. So that's like, one big change. But again, if you are just going to use it with Home Assistant, probably this is not something that you will notice at all. Lower custom implementation, well, I can't really comment to that. Over temperature protection and other things. I mean, I think it was already, maybe over temperature protection wasn't in the Shelly 1, but it was definitely in the Shelly 1 PM. And as I said, MQTT support, just like before. And some of the additional features I already mentioned, so the HTTP and HTTPS. Um, and when I go into the configuration, not here, but if I go into networks and, for example, in the Bluetooth connectivity, you can see that you can use MQTT-S as well. Oops, wrong page. Automation, smart controls are exactly the same as before. And by the way, the reason I'm showing the local web page and not the app, because it behaves and looks exactly the same in the app as all the devices. So most of the things you will see on the local site. And as it says, there is only 2 products in the line. And again, if I go back to the local side, you can see that we have new stuff here on the top as well. And that's going to be some of the features that I'm going to talk about. So, of course, it's connected to the Wi-Fi, but also it has Bluetooth, and it has the cloud connection, just like the old unit. But it is already also connected to the MQTT. So I think in the previous models, you either use cloud or you use local connection. But now you can use both. And this is not the only thing which differs from the two. Actually, let me just go back to the top. This is the Shelly Plus. And by the way, if I just open the, let's look at it later, how much it costs now. And I think in most cases it's going to be, pretty much like the old Shelly. If you see the voltages, the fact that it uses a dry contact, so you can use it as a garage door opener, is the same. But what's more interesting for me is this chart that they included right at the end of the documentation, or this page, which really shows the difference between the Shelly 1 and the Shelly 1 Plus. So you can just move this slider across. So this was the old design and that's the new design. So as you can see, it's the CPU, the memory and everything has been enhanced. So it was the 8266, 80 megahertz, 2 megabytes of RAM, and well, low voltage capabilities. So, and as you can see, they are using the ESP32, 160 megahertz, 4 megabytes of RAM. I mean, the big takeaway for me, especially in the RAM size, is they would be able to include a lot more functionality in the extra memory they have. So the actual firmware could be more complicated, and probably this is the reason for why we are seeing the scripts implemented for the first time, because now we have the memory to have all this additional functionality. As you can see, the low voltage is now 10 to 15 volt. So this is ideal for an RV operation where you have, let's say, lead acid batteries which can vary between these voltages. I think the DC voltage has changed as well. I'm not sure if you would really use anything above 48 volts. Maybe in some cases AC is the same. As you can see, over temperature protection is now including the Shelly 1 Plus. And the other thing is Bluetooth. And I want to talk about Bluetooth a little bit because this is something that they mention everywhere, but this is actually something which is only coming in the future. So yes, you can turn on Bluetooth, but as far as I can tell, based on the app and poking around, Bluetooth does absolutely nothing for the time being. I mean, yeah, it can support pairing. It can make pairing a little bit easier, but I think the Wi-Fi pairing was good enough. So I wouldn't spend an extra time to include the Bluetooth pairing if the unit has Wi-Fi anyway. But I'm thinking there is an awful lot of potential in this one, because let's say they can implement these devices, because now all of the Plus devices are going to have Bluetooth, so they can potentially be all Bluetooth gateways. So if the firmware allows, now they can have like all OEM Bluetooth sensors, for example, temperature sensor, motion sensor, and they can just communicate to one of the Shelly Pluses. And this is how you can, communicate with Bluetooth devices, just like you would do with Zigbee with a gateway. But now the gateway is actually a Shelly Plus. So I think we have seen a lot of nice Bluetooth thermometers, which has, battery operation, long battery life. So they would be ideal with these Bluetooth units. Not to mention, if this is just scans Bluetooth devices, they can be turned as some sort of presence detection. So if it senses your mobile phone around, you are probably at home, so it can activate some routines. So I think there is a lot of potential in Bluetooth, but it's just something which is coming in the future. As I said previously, you either had cloud or MQTT. Now they can have both at the same time. I already mentioned about secure connection, MQTTs and SSL. There are some new stuff in the UDP which I haven't discovered yet, and also the the webhook site supports HTTPS. The number of parallel connections supports now 10 users. I don't think this is really an issue because I mean, how many times more than two users connected to the Shelly, but it could be something in specific application. And also the webhook limit has been increased. So I think previously you could assign like 5 URLs, now you have up to 20. Again, if you're using a home automation system, this is not something that you would use because you will build the logic into your hub, not the device itself, but there is a possibility. Scheduled webhooks just refers to the fact that you can specify whether the webhook is enabled all the time or it has some sort of time limit. And of course, scripting, yeah, the big thing about scripting, which I've already mentioned. So that's a huge plus for me. And yeah, other bits and pieces which I think it's nice, but I'm less pumped about those. For example, the Wi-Fi at access point and the client mode can happen at the same time. But again, why would you want to have an access point and be a client at the same time? So I think this is definitely a fringe case. So the two big things for me is, or maybe the three big things for me is more memory, which allows scripting, and the Bluetooth stack, which hopefully is coming in the future. So I wanted to just focus on this table, and we can go through the Shelly 1 Plus as well. Sorry, 1 Plus PM as well. But again, it's going to be the same. It has the same features, and the application hasn't changed. So you can still monitor, consumption of the device that you connect to. And as I said, the app looks the same as the original Shelly 1 PM. And this table is, pretty much the same. I mean, there are a few things because Shelly 1 PM doesn't work on 12 volts, neither the old one did. So, but most of the other, features and differences are the same, what we have seen before. So that will be the Shelly Plus 1 and the Plus 1 PM in a nutshell. I just navigated to the online web shop as well, so you can see that the regular Plus 1 costs 10.75 euros, and plus VAT, and the PM is 13.25 euros. And that much with VAT. Actually, I'm not sure how much it was the original one. I think it would be a little bit more expensive because, the chip itself costs more, and the extra protection, for example, in the Plus 1 definitely, costs extra on the BOM. But at least the first one is available, so Plus 1 is available. Plus 1 PM is only, 25th of October is, it's coming out in a couple of weeks. So so these are the first two units of the Plus series. I'm pretty sure there is going to be a lot coming, and I'm also pretty sure there is going to be a lot more functionality and refinement coming, because if you look at the local website again, and if you look at the version, the current final version is 0.8.1, and I've already installed the 0.9.0 beta. So, I mean, it's not even a version 1, so this is definitely a work in progress. I mean, already pretty much like 100% of what you had already with the old unit is working, and now they are just working on adding the new stuff. And scripting only got enabled, I think, in the beta version. So by the time you probably purchase your unit and you install it, the version 1.0 is going to be available. So as I said, if you want to know anything about these, I mean, I do have the contacts in Shelly, so I can just ask them if I can't figure out myself. But after this video, there is going to be separate videos on the Shelly Plus 1, and also the Shelly Plus 1 PM. So I'm going to talk about, more details in the wiring and, how it looks, and how you can set it up, just like I did in my previous videos. And if you have any questions, I can include them in those videos. If you are interested in any of these products, you want to place a pre-order, the links are going to be in the video description. But I think that would be all for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.